Godzilla! The laser is 'cause I like sci-fi. The dude is 'cause I am a rad guy. 99 is 'cause I like Wayne Gretzky. That's why I'm Lazy Dude 99. Lazy time and we're gonna do a review. Yes, we're gonna review and talk about movies and comics too. Let's all go on to review. Hey everybody, I'm Lazy Dude 99. Welcome to another Lazy Dude 99 review. Today we are looking at the Godzilla remake. So let me just say right off the bat here that I am not a humongous Godzilla fanboy. Now, that doesn't mean I dislike Godzilla, but I wasn't one of the persons that has watched his entire history. I've seen a few of his movies, and yes, one of the movies that I saw was obviously the American 1998 movie Godzilla, directed by Roland Emmerich. So, that was basically the essential Godzilla movie for me growing up. And to be honest, I kind of still like the movie, not in any good way. I don't think it's good at all. I still think it's a horrible, crappy mess that rips off Jurassic Park every chance it gets. But I saw it so much growing up, I kind of have to enjoy it for the stupidity. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. I know it's bad, but I still kind of enjoy it. So when I was seeing the trailers for this one, I got really hyped because he looks so massive. The effects looked awesome, and with that whole scene where all this, they're skydiving down, and you hear that music that you hear when the witch is near in Left 4 Dead. When that stuff was going on, it's like, oh man, this is going to be really creepy and really epic, and the movie is pretty good. This movie is directed by Gareth Edwards. It is also starring Aaron Taylor Johnson, who you might remember from Kick-Ass, Ken Watanabe, who you might remember from Batman Begins and Inception, and Bryan Cranston, who is from Breaking Bad fame. So basically, this movie opens up where you're introduced to this character, Bryan Cranston, who lives in Japan, and he works at this nuclear facility, and all of a sudden something starts going wrong, and a giant tremor, things are shaking up, nobody really knows what's happening, and then all of a sudden his wife dies and he's evacuated, but he thinks that there's something behind this because all the readings don't make any sense, and he knows that there's something behind this, so he spends his whole life searching for it in order to try to figure out what's behind this major cataclysmic event, why they've locked off this entire area. And his son, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, he grows up, he's a soldier, and then he kind of gets sucked into his dad's obsession, and Ken Watanabe is the person who is trying to contain the situation, but before you know it, two giant monsters are let loose on this world, and the military has absolutely no way of taking them down, and they have to rely on the big, mighty, powerful monster called Godzilla to take them down. So let me just start by saying that I think this movie is good, but it has problems, and in some ways they are problems that a lot of people have addressed in their reviews of how Godzilla isn't really in this movie that much. And we all were kind of like, let me just say that Godzilla is teased a lot. Like, they have all this build up, and they say there's this big monster, two big monsters going on, one male, one female, so you're like, oh no, they could breed and have things, and then they build up, like, there's this big, ginormous creature called Godzilla, and that's what all the nuclear testing was about. They weren't actual tests. They were trying to kill Godzilla, but they couldn't, but he disappeared. And now all of a sudden Godzilla appears as soon as with these big other creatures because he's their predator and he's up there to destroy them and then apparently go home because he doesn't really have anything else to do, I guess. One of the things that I kind of will say about this movie is that our main character, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, he's pretty bland. He's pretty plain. I mean, there's nothing exactly wrong with his character, but his character is pretty just the typical military guy that really leaves it much to be desired. Like, I don't really care about him. He has a wife and a kid. But they just feel like the obligatory wife and kids that you have to have in a movie like this so you can relate to the characters and know what they're going through. But a lot of the times in movies like this, and in this movie, you're like, well, that's what's supposed to make me emotionally invested into this movie. But it doesn't really, because I don't really care about their characters. And getting back to my main thing, the biggest complaint is that there's not enough Godzilla. For example, let me put it this way. There's this whole scene in Hawaii where they're building it up. There's a monster on the island. People are looking this way. And this little girl turns. She's the only one looking this way. And she's like, Dad? And then you realize the waves start coming in. They pour over because this is going realistic. Like if a monster like Godzilla was heading for the island, big waves would be hitting the wave first because of his motion and size. It's like a whole island headed towards you. So that was the waiting force. I'm like, all right, they're building him up. And so then you have this moment where this gigantic creature and Godzilla face to face. And you start from the legs and you get a big, good view of Godzilla. And you're like, oh my gosh, that looks amazing! And then he lets out his roar. Oh man, that's one of the most beautiful movie sounds ever. Anyway, so that happens, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's gonna be a big fight! And then they cut away. And then you kind of like see parts of the big fight on the news. Like it's just like in the background. Like, oh look, they're fighting two big monsters. What do you know? Who'd have thunk it? I mean, like, what? No! I want to see the big fight! The one character that I really, really liked of the human characters is the guy played by Bryan Cranston, because this guy who let this loss really fuel his desire to know what happens, but not just because he lost his wife, but because he knows that there's something more to it. It wasn't just a regular disaster that happened on this nuclear facility. Something more happened there, and he cannot let himself move on because otherwise he will never know the reason why his wife died. And I like that about his character. The only problem is his character is shuffled up early on in the movie, and we don't even get him. He's not even throughout most of the movie. I'm like, come on! He was your most interesting character. I was emotionally invested in his journey because of his loss and his sorrow and how he's letting this drive him. I wanted to see him throughout most of this movie, not his son, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. I didn't really care about him one way or another. But that guy I cared about. I'm like, man, he's awesome. Not even really through most of the movie. I was really mad when that happened. Just a note for future screenwriters and directors and whatever. If you're going to hire a great actor that's going to steal the show, have him throughout most of your movie. Because if you get rid of him early on, then you're just going to have all your audience thinking, remember in the beginning of the movie when, we had that character we actually cared about? That was awesome, wasn't it? I like that. Now, maybe I'm being a little too hard, because as I say, Aaron Taylor Johnson's character isn't bad. It's just pretty typical for a military lieutenant that's really determined to see things through, whatnot, blah, blah, blah. I've seen it before, don't care. Now, when Godzilla does show up, I must say, it's the best he's ever looked as far as I have seen. Mind you, I have not been up to date with regular, up-to-date Godzilla movies, so maybe he's looked much better, but the suits and the way he looked, it was awesome. And these other creatures had really cool designs too. I won't say which creatures were there, because I don't want to give away for anyone who hasn't seen it which creatures they are, so so they can be pleasantly surprised. And I don't even remember the names, so there you go. I will say there's a couple of really big coincidences. Like, okay, the evil creatures come up out of this nuclear facility. It's been sucking in nuclear energy to make itself more powerful and able to lay eggs and whatnot, and you're like, oh man, it's all ready to go, and it bursts out of its thing, destroys stuff, and then you find out that this other creature was also doing the same thing, and they went open at the same time. I actually thought it was pretty cool how they were both came at the same time, but in the way they explained it, it wasn't so much of a coincidence. And even Godzilla appearing just as soon as these creatures come up, the way they explain it, it actually kind of makes sense. He was down in the depths, he was done, he didn't care about her up above, because what is there up above? Nothing. But when he heard the mating call of these two creatures, because, you know, male, female, when he heard their mating call and their love call, then he realized that there was, you know, his prey up there. And that's what draws Godzilla to the surface after being gone for so many years. One other thing that I actually like about this movie is the military, because so many times you have in this movie, and especially with the last Godzilla film, where the military are portrayed like idiots. You know, the all our best strategic military minds, and they're just like, well, let's do this. No, that's stupid. Well, I'm doing it anyway. In this movie, there's stuff where the military, they make wrong decisions, but they're understandably wrong decisions, and the decision that they go with would be a smart move if it actually worked. For example, they decide that since all these creatures are attracted to nuclear energy, that they're going to lure all the creatures to one spot, then explode a nuclear bomb on them. Now, Ken Watanabe's character points out that, look, this Godzilla creature isn't here to take over the world or to lay its eggs or anything. He says it's just here to take out its prey and then leave. We don't need to try to kill it. And the military guy goes, look, I hear you, but that's a risk that I just can't take. Which, to be fair, yeah, that is a risk you just can't take. What if Godzilla isn't here to just kill those other creatures? What if he's actually up there to actually destroy and devour all these things, just like those other creatures are? And of course, they're trying to cover up this whole catastrophe with the whole monsters things. At the beginning, they're trying to keep it all under wraps. But when the monsters are out, they're not gonna. They don't go and say, "All right, we need to cover this up. Make sure that the media doesn't get it." They're like, "Look, the cat's out of the bag, gentlemen. Our number one priority is now civilian safety. That's our number one priority. We don't need to worry about keeping this under wraps. It's out there. We got to worry about civilian safety. That's our number one priority." I like that. That the government is not really painted as this ultra evil or stupid organization. They're not portrayed as idiots like the ones in the 1998 Godzilla movie, where these military strategists and thinkers lost Godzilla. They lost him. And how do you lose a monster the size of a skyscraper? Twice! I actually like how in this movie they never actually lose Godzilla. When he's swimming across the countries, there's like aircraft carriers and all this surrounding him. Like, they got him surrounded, but their weapons are basically useless against him. So they're like, well, let's not shoot at him because he'll be able to destroy us pretty quickly. But let's not really just keep him out of sight either. So I like that Godzilla isn't ever really out of sight, out of mind. He's always there, and they're always like on him. And he does start picking up speed to move faster than an aircraft carrier at one point, but they still will always know where he is because of his size, and he's very easy to track. I like that about the movie, that this gigantic monster can't just disappear. The military in here is played as competent, but maybe in a little over their heads because of these creatures. And, you know, to put their faith in that this giant monster will save them is kind of it's a stretch. And I like that they're still trying to defeat these guys. Now, that being said, I like Ken Watanabe's character. I wish he had, like, more to do other than look stunned all the time. That's all Ken Watanabe did. And then he said, "A few lines." I don't know. It's just I wish his character was more fleshed out, what his motivations were, who he was, because he's a great actor, and I wanted to see him like do more with his acting chops, but he didn't get a chance to. And as I said, the best performance in this film is only halfway through the film. Not even half. Not even half. There's a few coincidences, as I said, like this Aaron Thomas, it's his character, the soldier. After he goes with his dad to this place, and the giant creature hatches out, and he goes on a rampage, and he nearly dies, and they send him away. They say, "Okay, we're sending you home." So they send him away. He goes all the way to Hawaii, because that's just where his flight took him, and he was going to take us from Hawaii to San Diego, I believe it is. Anyway, so he's in Hawaii, and it just so happens that this creature swims all the way to Hawaii. That's a little bit of a coincidence that this creature just happened to go to the exact same place that this guy did. Especially since Japan, really, you're going to go all the way to Hawaii, I guess because the other creature's in Nevada, but maybe that's not too much of a thing, because I don't have a map, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, Hawaii's would be the biggest stop along the way, then to continue, I guess. But it's a little convenient that they just both happen to go to the same island and get there around the same time. Now, the fight scenes I like. The one thing that kind of raised an eyebrow to me is whenever there was a shot with the monsters moving, you had that little that sound that makes it sound larger than life, but it made it sound more mechanical than flesh. I don't know what sound I would have wanted, but it made it sound like they were walking robots, like a transformer walking, than a creature. But I don't know, it still made them sound large and epic, and that was good. So I want to talk about this movie a little bit more, but I want to talk about it in the spoiler section, so I will just rate this movie right now. In the end, I think this Godzilla remake is actually a pretty good movie. I wish the characters were as interesting as the creature designs, and while Godzilla isn't in it a whole lot, every time he's in it, he steals the show. All the attention is on him. His roar is awesome. He is awesome. The fight scenes are awesome. It's just a really good movie. So Godzilla gets a 6.5 out of me. So thanks for watching, everybody. I'm LaserDude99. It's time to go over to the spoilers. Okay, my first thing that I want to say right now is when Godzilla opened up his mouth and that was awesome. Okay, I don't care. That part alone, I'd pay to see again. Okay, I would buy just to go to a movie theater and see. Oh man, that's a great finisher move. Okay, I love that. That big fight scene in San Francisco, I think was absolutely incredible. The way it was stylized, and let me just say right now, guys, I do like this movie more than Pacific Rim. I mean, a lot of people like Pacific Rim. I don't, because I didn't like any of the characters at all. But that being said, I liked this movie because while not all of the characters were fleshed out or that interesting, I still liked at least one of the characters, and the animals had more of a character to me, and I liked the effects better. And Godzilla just felt like such a larger-than-life, such an awesome creature. I think that he's what sold the movie for me mostly, and this is why most people are disappointed that he's not in it more. I mean, think about it like this way. It's like Jaws. People don't complain that Jaws isn't in the movie all the way through because Jaws isn't the only awesome thing in the movie Jaws. You also have, Brody, and you have Hoopa, and you have the captain, and you have all these other great characters that are in the movie, so when the shark's not on screen, you're still being entertained by the good characters in the movie. I think that's why people are complaining that there isn't enough Godzilla in this movie, is because Godzilla is the most awesome thing in the movie, bar none, and there's not enough awesome when he's not on screen. Whenever he's not on camera, that the story seems to slow down a little bit, and you get a lot of dialogue, but since I don't care too much about the characters that are saying the dialogue, it feels a little boring. And then as soon as Godzilla comes on screen, says one roar, I'm sold, and I'm there again, and they give him a little bit of a character too, and I like that. And he's not like a character that has a full-on character development. We just know that he's just a creature that has come up to kick some butt and to destroy these other monsters, and then go home to his nice place on the bottom of the sea. Under the sea, under the sea, under the sea, under the sea. There is Godzilla, and he will eat it indefinitely. Okay, I don't know why I'm doing that, but I am. Anyway, so one thing that I will say that I rolled my eyes a lot at is when Godzilla is leaving the city, there's a news TV that says Godzilla, King of the Monsters, Savior of the City. I'm like, what? I'm sure, yeah, they got a fair bit of people from San Francisco moved out of San Francisco. They got a fair bit of people out of there. But there was probably thousands of people dead. Okay? I don't care if, yeah, he did technically come to save people. There was no way that, they would put, that news people would put that one of the monsters was the savior of the city this soon in the telecast. There's so much damage. People's homes are destroyed. Nobody's going to be praising that giant monster just yet. You know, maybe after time and wounds healed and like people have enough time to study the situation, they realize, oh, he was there to help. Yeah, I can see that over an amount of time, people saying Godzilla was the savior of the city. But on the day after all this big destruction happened and so many people probably died, no, I don't think so. Especially since he probably killed some people on that bridge. Remember the bridge? The bridge scene, we think, oh no, is this kid gonna die? Obviously not. But Godzilla went like, boom, and went through the back of the bridge. There was probably cars over there. Those people did die. So it's not like he went under the bridge. He still went through it. He still probably killed some people. Godzilla was probably still responsible for some people dying. Yes, not as much as those other motos, I think is what they were called, was it? I don't remember. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But still, I think it would be unrealistic for a newscast to put Savior of the City. Why did they kill Bryan Cranston's character? Why? They obviously knew from the trailers that he was the best actor in the part of the movie, so why did they kill him? If instead of this soldier guy alone trying to carry the whole movie, which he couldn't, why wasn't he in there? Why wasn't he with Ken Watanabe's character? And they have discussions on, nature over technology or whatnot. Stuff like that. They could have had conversations that bring up the, what if this was really happening question to other people. I think they could have done a real lots with his character, and they just kill him in like the first 20 minutes. And I'm just like, he was all my emotional investment. He was the only character that I actually cared to make it through. You kill him, now what am I left with? Kick-Arse trying to be a soldier? No! I want to see that guy. I'm not even a fan of Breaking Bad, and I want to see that guy. In any case, I think this is a good movie. I like it a fair bit. Would I be buying it on DVD? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. It really depends on how I'm feeling. I think it's a good movie, and I like the character that Bryan Cranston played, and I like Godzilla. I think there's a lot of part where it drags because they have to talk a whole lot, and I think that kind of, since we're not really interested in any of the characters, that kind of brings it down a little bit, which is why it's only a 6.5 out of 10 and not anything higher. But, as I said, the fight scenes are enjoyable. One of the characters is enjoyable for a good quarter of the film. And, so that's what I have to say about Godzilla. Thank you for watching, everybody. I'm LaserDude99, and if I don't like it, it's not worth it. See you around. Be sure to check out more of my other videos on my channel. And wait for more coming soon.